A single symbol could declare peace or demand war depending on who held the chisel. This is the hidden power of script, a living force reshaped by every empire that touched it. We are about to trace the journey of these coded messages, from Mesopotamian clay to Egyptian stone, and see how conquerors and traders twisted their meanings to build their own legends. By the end, you will grasp how the simple act of writing a word could launch a golden age or seal a civilization's doom. We will uncover why a sacred text could become a merchant's tally, and how a forgotten alphabet can suddenly roar back to life. What do you believe is the true purpose of the words you are reading right now? A single clay tablet rests in the dust, its surface a dense forest of wedge-shaped marks. Each indentation is a fossilized thought, a law decreed, a god praised, a bushel of grain counted. This is the true nature of script. It is not a passive vessel for words, but a cultural fingerprint pressed into the wet clay of history. Every curve and line encodes the values, the beliefs, and the very power structure of the society that gave it form. When one empire adopts the script of another, it does not merely import a set of handy symbols. It inherits an entire ideological universe, a cargo of assumptions and worldviews that must then be unpacked, challenged, and often forcibly rewritten. As linguist John DeFrancis noted, writing is a technology of power. To control a script is to control the narrative of history itself, to decide which stories are carved in stone and which are erased from memory. Scripts are never neutral tools. They are active participants in constructing reality. A well-designed writing system can weave a tapestry from 1,000 disparate threads, unifying countless peoples under a single administrative language. Yet that same system can become a weapon of division, a gatekeeper of knowledge accessible only to a privileged, literate elite. The very architecture of a script shapes how a culture thinks. Consider the fundamental difference between a logographic system, where one character represents a whole word or concept, and an alphabetic one, where symbols represent individual sounds. A logographic script, like Chinese characters, can create a remarkable form of imperial unity. People from regions with completely different spoken languages, who could never understand each other in conversation, can read the same text and share the same written culture. The concept of river or king or duty looks the same on the page, forging a conceptual bond that speech alone cannot. Now, imagine a society that speaks in flowing, interconnected ideas being forced to adopt a rigidly phonetic alphabet. How might that new, analytical structure of breaking words into their smallest sounds force them to see their own world through a foreign, fragmented lens? This is the profound psychological power of the written word. It does not just record our thoughts, it actively shapes them. And once we understand that these symbols are imbued with such inherent power, the battle over their meaning between empires becomes a conflict for the soul of civilization itself. The city of Akkad hummed with a dozen different tongues, a challenge that demanded a new kind of power. Sargon the Great, architect of the world's first multi-ethnic empire, looked upon the Sumerian system of cuneiform and saw more than just temple accounts. He saw an administrative skeleton key. The wedge-shaped marks, originally pressed into clay to count bushels of grain for Sumerian gods, were now conscripted for a grander, more terrestrial project, imperial rule. The Akkadians spoke a Semitic language completely unrelated to Sumerian, so a simple adoption was impossible. This required a creative conquest of the script itself. They kept the physical act of impressing wedges, but they began assigning those wedges new sounds and meanings, forging a complex hybrid system. A single sign could now be read as a Sumerian word, an Akkadian word, or simply represent a syllable in an Akkadian word. This was not mere translation, it was a linguistic alchemy. The script became bilingual, a fluid tool that could unify the empire's diverse peoples under a single written law. Historian Mark van der Meerup identifies this as a masterstroke of governance. By repurposing the existing script, the Akkadians gained instant administrative legitimacy while projecting their own power. The clearest evidence of this success is etched in stone, the Code of Hammurabi. This monumental legal text was written in Akkadian Cuneiform, its laws proclaimed to ensure justice throughout the land. The script itself was the messenger of imperial authority, declaring that order now flowed from a Babylonian king. Centuries later, the script's influence stretched even further, becoming the lingua franca of international diplomacy. The Amarna letters, a trove of clay tablets found in Egypt, reveal correspondence between pharaohs and other Near Eastern rulers, all written in Akkadian cuneiform. A script born in Sumerian temples was now negotiating treaties between Egypt and Babylon. This flexibility granted cuneiform an incredible longevity, yet it also contained the seeds of its own obsolescence. The very complexity that made it so adaptable with its hundreds of signs made it difficult to master. As simpler alphabetic systems like Aramaic spread, used by traders and administrators for their efficiency, the old wedge writing slowly receded from daily life. Its story poses a critical question: does a script's survival depend on its capacity for reinvention? The Akkadians proved that a writing system could be conquered, not with swords, but with a stylus, its meaning reshaped to serve a new empire's dream of unity. The sacred carvings of Egypt's temples held a power that far surpassed simple communication. For nearly 3,000 years, hieroglyphs were the voice of the gods and the divine right of the pharaohs, a magical script understood only by a select few priests and scribes. Its intricate images of birds, serpents, and eyes were not mere art. They were a technology of the sacred, believed to hold the very essence of the things they represented. But when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt and his general Ptolemy took the throne, this ancient system faced a new kind of conqueror. The Greek rulers did not destroy the hieroglyphs. Instead, they sought to harness their immense cultural authority. They faced a delicate balancing act: how to present themselves as legitimate pharaohs to the Egyptian people while governing through a Greek-speaking bureaucracy. The solution was a masterpiece of political theater etched in black basalt, the Rosetta Stone. This slab presented a single, mundane priestly decree in 3 scripts: the sacred hieroglyphs, the everyday Egyptian demotic, and the language of the new rulers, Greek. As the Egyptologist John Ray observes, this was not a simple act of translation for convenience. It was a powerful declaration, an attempt to fuse 2 worlds and assert that the legacy of the pharaohs and their divine mandate now flowed through Greek bloodlines. Yet this very act of preservation also began a process of distortion. Later Roman authors, gazing upon the enigmatic symbols, saw not a complex mix of phonetic and logographic signs, but a collection of pure allegories. They believed each hieroglyph held a single, profound philosophical secret, a misunderstanding that would echo for centuries and obscure the script's true nature. The Romans, like the Greeks before them, were adept at repurposing this symbolic power. Look at the Temple of Dendior, built under the Roman Emperor Augustus. Its walls are adorned with traditional Egyptian reliefs, the hieroglyphs carefully carving the image of a Roman emperor as an Egyptian pharaoh, making offerings to the local gods. The script was being used as a prop in a grand performance of legitimacy, its deep religious meaning slowly being hollowed out for imperial propaganda. This growing gap between the script's original context and its foreign interpretation had a devastating long-term consequence. As Christianity spread and the old pagan temples were closed, the last priests who held the key to reading the sacred carvings vanished. The knowledge of how to unlock the language of the pharaohs was lost for over a millennium, not simply forgotten, but severed by the very empires that had tried to co-opt its power. The script remained a beautiful and silent monument on stone, waiting for a key that would not be found for 1,500 years. This hollowing out of a writing system reveals a profound truth. When a script is stripped of its native speakers and its cultural heart, it can become a beautiful shell, a code without a cipher. While the empires of Mesopotamia and Egypt wrestled with complex scripts of power, a different kind of writing was being born on the bustling docks of the Levant. Phoenician merchants, masters of the Mediterranean sea lanes, had no time for hundreds of intricate symbols. Their need was pure practicality, a fast and reliable way to log cargo, record debts, and draft contracts. From this mercantile pressure emerged a revolutionary tool, the Phoenician alphabet. Its system was brilliantly simple, just 22 consonants that could be quickly scratched onto a wax tablet or a piece of pottery. This was not a script for praising gods or etching royal decrees into stone. It was a tool for moving merchandise. Yet this commercial invention would become the most transformative writing system in human history, all because of a single, brilliant adaptation. When the Greeks encountered this Phoenician script through trade, they saw its potential but also its limitation for their own rich and vowel-heavy language. So they performed an act of linguistic genius. They took certain consonant signs from the Phoenician system that represented sounds not used in Greek and repurposed them to represent pure vowel sounds. This was the birth of the first true alphabet, where every basic sound, both consonant and vowel, had its own symbol. This single innovation unlocked the written word for the masses. No longer was literacy the exclusive domain of years-trained scribes. Now almost anyone could learn the handful of symbols needed to read and write. This newly empowered script became the vessel for everything that would define Greek culture. The epic poems of Homer, once solely the property of oral bards, could now be fixed in writing, preserved for all time. In the budding democracy of Athens, laws could be carved into public stone for every citizen to see and understand, creating a transparency that was the bedrock of civic life. As historian Eric H. Klein has emphasized, this act of borrowing and modifying a script was one of the most pivotal cultural transfers ever. The alphabet's journey was far from over. It traveled to the Etruscans in Italy, and from them, the Romans refined it into the elegant Latin script we know today. One of the earliest glimpses we have of this evolution is the Dunos inscription, a small, three-line text on a vase from the 7th century before the Common Era. Its clumsy, uncertain letters show the Latin alphabet in its infancy, long before it became the sharp, administrative tool of the Roman legions. So why was this alphabetic system so explosively successful? Its core strength was its radical flexibility and accessibility. An empire built on trade and administration, like Rome, could teach its system to countless peoples across Europe and beyond, forging a written unity that helped bind the empire together. The story of the Phoenician alphabet proves that the most enduring scripts are not necessarily the most sacred or the most complex, but those that are most easily learned, shared, and reshaped to meet new needs. This very quality of adaptability would be tested to its limits in our next story, where a script would not be adopted by an empire, but nearly erased by one, only to stage a miraculous return from the brink of oblivion. The Persian Empire sprawled across continents, a mosaic of peoples and tongues that defied simple rule. To govern this colossal domain, the Achaemenid kings required more than armies. they needed a circulatory system for information. Their brilliant solution was not a new invention, but an adoption. They elevated Aramaic, the language and script of a modest Semitic people, into the official tongue of imperial administration. This was a strategic masterstroke. Aramaic's alphabetic script, written quickly with a reed pen on papyrus or parchment, was a model of efficiency compared to the cumbersome clay tablets of Cuneiform. Imperial scribes were trained in a standardized form of the language, creating a vast, interconnected bureaucracy that could relay orders from the royal court to the farthest satrapies. As historian Pierre Bryant notes, this policy of Aramization allowed the empire to communicate and control without demanding that every subject people abandon their own culture and speech. The proof of its reach is etched into the cliff face at Behistun, where the grand inscriptions of Darius the Great include passages in Aramaic, proclaiming his power in the empire's administrative voice. But its true power is revealed in the mundane, in the countless tax receipts, marriage contracts, and letters penned on fragile materials that have survived the millennia. A remarkable collection, the Elephantine Papyri, shows a Jewish military community in Egypt using Aramaic for their daily affairs, from legal disputes to religious observances. This was not just a language for kings, it was the script of diaspora life. The empire's patronage ensured Aramaic's influence would outlive the empire itself. It evolved into the scripts used for Hebrew and Arabic, and its characters traveled the Silk Road, influencing written forms as far away as India and Central Asia. It even became a vessel for Zoroastrian religious texts, preserving sacred ideas long after Persian palaces had crumbled to dust. The story of Aramaic answers a profound question: can a shared written word bind an empire more effectively than a shared spoken one? Here, the parchment scroll proved mightier than the sword, a testament to the sheer administrative power of a simple, versatile script. This practical reshaping of writing for governance stands in stark contrast to our next story, where a script's entire meaning would be transformed not by imperial decree, but by the seismic force of religious conversion. The Greek alphabet carried the voice of Socrates into the hushed scriptoria of Byzantine monasteries. In the grand city of Constantinople, this script, once the vehicle for Plato's philosophy and the debates of Athenian democracy, was now being reforged for a new purpose. It became the sacred vessel of Orthodox Christianity, its letters imbued with a divine authority that echoed through the vast Hagia Sophia. The Byzantine Empire saw itself as the direct continuation of Rome, yet its official language was Greek, and its identity was inextricably bound to the Church. This powerful fusion of imperial and religious authority led to a profound shift in the alphabet's very soul. It was no longer primarily a tool for secular thought. It became the medium for theological texts, liturgical hymns, and imperial propaganda that portrayed the emperor as God's own representative on earth. To manage this vast project of ideological construction, a new form of handwriting emerged, the Byzantine minuscule. This elegant, efficient script allowed scribes in monastic workshops to copy manuscripts with incredible speed and accuracy. Their diligent work ensured the simultaneous preservation of two great traditions, the classical Greek literature of the past and the foundational writings of the Church Fathers. Scholars like Averell Cameron have detailed how the Byzantines used this written word to build a coherent ideological world, a universe where the logic of Aristotle could coexist with the mysteries of Christian doctrine. The alphabet itself became a powerful marker of identity. To be literate in Greek was to be civilized, to be orthodox, setting the Byzantines apart from their neighbors who used the Latin script of the West or the strange new glagolitic letters of the Slavs. This script was not confined to parchment. It appeared in the glittering gold of mosaics, identifying saints and emperors alike, and was woven into the intricate designs of religious icons. The letters were visually inseparable from the holy figures they named, a constant visual reinforcement of faith and power. Perhaps the most dramatic testament to the alphabet's adaptability was the missionary work of Cyril and Methodius. They took the Greek alphabet as their foundation and, in the 9th century, adapted it to create the Glagolitic script, a new writing system designed specifically for the Slavic languages. This was not a simple borrowing, it was a creative act of linguistic engineering meant to bring the word of God to a new people in their own tongue. A powerful symbol of this entire transformation is the Codex Sinaiticus, a monumental 4th century Greek manuscript of the Bible. This book, written in uncial letters, represents the script's central role in defining the Christian canon and doctrine for centuries. So in what ways did this religious mission reshape the cultural weight of the Greek alphabet? It was reinvested with a new spiritual significance, becoming the guardian of orthodoxy and the primary tool for projecting that faith beyond its own borders. Its journey from the agora to the altar shows how a script can be sanctified, its original meanings layered over with divine purpose to serve an empire built on faith. Our journey now takes us to the East, where a script would be created from nothing with the explicit goal of unifying a vast nomadic empire. Genghis Khan's horse armies swept across continents, yet they rode with no native script to record their laws or carry their commands. Forging history's largest land empire demanded a system of writing as swift and adaptable as their conquests. Their solution did not emerge from the steppe, but was taken from a conquered people, the Uyghurs. This Turkic group used a vertical script, elegant and efficient, perfectly suited for writing on scrolls carried by administrators on the move. The Mongols did not simply borrow these letters, they conscripted them. They adopted the Uyghur script to write their own language, transforming it into the primary instrument of imperial rule for laws, official seals, and urgent diplomatic messages. This was a deeply pragmatic choice, as historian Timothy May explains, because scribes already familiar with the system could be put to work immediately. But the Mongols were far from passive recipients. They infused this borrowed script with their own powerful legal concepts, most notably the Yasa, the code of law that organized their vast domains. The script's meaning was fundamentally rewritten, shifting from an expression of Uyghur culture to a tool of nomadic imperial authority. Its vertical lines became the veins through which the will of the great Khan flowed. One of its most important tasks was to document the empire's own origin story, the secret history of the Mongols, ensuring its legends would outlive its rulers. Later, Kublai Khan, recognizing the power of a unified writing system, commissioned an entirely new script called Fags-Pa, designed to write every language in the empire. Yet this artificially created system never achieved the organic popularity of the Uyghur script. Its enduring legacy is etched in stone, like the Sino-Mongol inscription of 1362, which shows the script still in use generations after the empire fractured. The Mongols teach us that building a world empire often means seizing the most practical administrative tool at hand, regardless of its origin. They prioritized pure utility over cultural purity, proving that a conquered people's alphabet could become the voice of its conquerors. This pragmatic approach to script stands in stark contrast to our next story, where writing would be wielded not just for administration, but as a deliberate tool for cultural assimilation. The Roman legionary did not march alone. Along with his javelin and shield, he carried the sharp, clean letters of the Latin alphabet. This script was a weapon of a different kind, one designed not to conquer bodies but to reshape minds. Forged from the Etruscan adaptation of Greek letters, the Romans honed it into an instrument of unparalleled clarity and authority. Its elegant capitals were chiseled into the stone of triumphal arches and civic monuments from the Forum in Rome to the distant outpost of Hadrian's Wall in Britain. This was not an accidental export, it was a deliberate policy of Romanization. To be part of the empire, to access its law and its commerce, was to be literate in Latin. Local chieftains in Gaul and Iberia found that adopting Roman dress, language, and writing was the surest path to prestige and power within the new order. As the classicist Mary Beard reminds us, writing was everywhere in the Roman world, a constant, visible web of authority. The script's very form evolved to meet the demands of this vast administration. Alongside the formal stone-cut letters, a fluid Roman cursive developed for the daily business of the state, scratched onto wax tablets or inked onto papyrus. The army itself became a surprising engine of literacy, with soldiers using the script for everything from duty rosters to personal letters home. A remarkable window into this world comes from the Vindolanda tablets, fragile wooden writing sheets found at a fort in northern Britain. They preserve the most ordinary moments, a birthday party invitation from one officer's wife to another, a request for more beer and socks for the troops. Here, Latin was not the language of epic poetry, but of daily life and military logistics, proving how deeply the script had penetrated the fabric of the empire. And when the political structure of Rome finally crumbled, its script did not disappear. It was adapted by the very peoples who had once been conquered, used to write emerging Germanic and Celtic languages, laying the foundation for the written traditions of much of Europe. So how did this imposition shape the continent's long-term linguistic landscape? The Latin alphabet became the ultimate imperial ghost, an enduring framework that outlived its creators, permanently encoding a Roman vision of order onto the world. This assertive use of writing to forge a unified identity finds a powerful echo far to the east, where a new empire would soon create its own unique script, not from conquest, but from a need for cultural self-assertion. A polished stone pillar stands in a field, its surface covered in clean, curved characters that seem to whisper of a profound change of heart. This is the voice of Ashoka the Great, and the script is Brahmi. Across the vast expanse of the Mauryan Empire, from the northwest to the deep south, these same elegant syllables were carved into rock faces and towering pillars, delivering a single, unifying message. The script itself was a political and spiritual innovation. Unlike the complex cuneiform of Mesopotamia or the sacred hieroglyphs of Egypt, Brahmi was a syllabic system where each character represented a consonant with an inherent vowel sound. This structure made it remarkably well-suited for the Prakrit languages spoken by the people, a deliberate choice for an emperor who wished to speak directly to his subjects, not just to priests and scribes. After the horrific bloodshed of the Kalinga War, Ashoka embraced Buddhism and its principle of non-violence. His famous edicts, written in Brahmi, were not boasts of military conquest but profound apologies and a new code for living, his philosophy of Dhamma. At the major rock edict in Gurnar, the Brahmi script carefully records the emperor's deep remorse for the suffering he caused, and then outlines his new policies promoting compassion, respect for all life, and religious tolerance. This was a radical use of imperial power, and the accessible Brahmi script was its perfect vessel. Historian Ramila Thapar notes that these inscriptions functioned as a permanent public conscience for the empire, a direct line from the ruler's heart to the people. The script's meaning became forever intertwined with this vision of ethical governance. Its legacy, however, would far outlast the Mauryan Empire itself. From the graceful curves of Brahmi, nearly every major script of South and Southeast Asia would eventually evolve. The Devanagari script used for Sanskrit and Hindi, the Tamil script of southern India, and even the Tibetan alphabet all trace their lineage back to these Mauryan pillars. The inscriptions on the gateways of the Great Stupa at Sanchai, for instance, show this early evolution, their Brahmi-derived characters telling the stories of the Buddha's past lives. For centuries, however, the ability to read these ancient messages was lost. The key was only recovered in the 1830s, thanks to the brilliant decipherment by the scholar James Prinsep. By comparing short inscriptions on pillars and carefully noting repeated royal titles, he slowly cracked the code, unlocking the voice of Ashoka for the modern world. So how did a standardized script like Brahmi facilitate both imperial administration and a world religion? It provided a common written ground for diverse peoples, allowing Ashoka's moral empire to be built not on force, but on a shared, readable ideal. Its creation was an act of brilliant statecraft, proving that a script designed for clarity and accessibility could become the foundation for countless cultures. Our path now leads to a script that performed a similar bridging function, but between two entirely different continents, carrying faith across the Sahara on the backs of camels. The sacred text of the Quran, revealed in Arabic, imbued its script with a divine permanence no ruler could alter. This was a script now frozen in holy form, its letters considered a direct reflection of God's word. When the armies of the early caliphate surged outward, they carried this script not just as a tool for prayer, but as the new backbone of imperial administration. Across the vast expanse from Spain to India, a remarkable pattern emerged. Conquered peoples were not forced to abandon their tongues, but to participate in this new order, they had to learn its written language. The result was a wave of creative adaptation. Persian scribes, heirs to a rich literary tradition, faced a problem. Their language contained sounds like P and CH that did not exist in Arabic. So they ingeniously modified the script, adding new letters and dots to the existing alphabet, creating what we now know as the Perso-Arabic script. This was not a surrender of culture, but a pragmatic and brilliant act of linguistic fusion. As historian Hugh Kennedy observes, this process forged a vast Islamicate civilization, a shared world of high culture united by a common written medium, even as 100 different spoken languages flourished beneath it. The script itself evolved beautiful new cursive forms to suit its many roles. The angular, majestic Kufic script was perfect for carving into stone on grand monuments, while the flowing, legible Naskh became the standard for copying the Quran and for everyday correspondence. In Baghdad's legendary House of Wisdom, this script became the engine of a global knowledge transfer. Greek works of philosophy, Persian texts on statecraft, and Indian treatises on mathematics were all translated into Arabic, their ideas debated and advanced by scholars from every corner of the empire before being transcribed and disseminated in the same sacred letters. This script gave the world the profound poetry of Rumi in Persian, the intricate ghazals of Ghalib in Urdu, and the legal codes of the Ottoman Empire. A journey to the Alhambra Palace in Granada, Spain, offers a stunning visual testament to this transformation. Far from its Arabian homeland, the walls of this Nasrid palace are woven with endless bands of Arabic calligraphy, verses of poetry and phrases from the Quran that are inseparable from the architecture itself. The script is not merely an inscription, it is the very skin of the building, proclaiming power, piety, and a sophisticated cosmopolitan identity. So how did the religious significance of the Arabic script influence its spread and resistance to change? Its divine origin made it immutable at its core, a fixed point around which an entire civilization could orbit. This sacred anchor allowed it to be adapted for secular use across countless cultures without ever losing its fundamental identity, creating a written unity that proved more enduring than any single empire built upon it. This spiritual cement stands in stark contrast to the fate of a script whose meaning was violently fractured not by a new faith, but by the brute force of colonial encounter. A jungle swallowed the stone cities, and with them the voices of kings. For the classic Maya, their intricate script was the very pulse of civilization, a logosyllabic marvel painted in bark paper books and carved into temple walls. Each glyph was a universe of meaning, combining logograms for whole words with syllabograms for sounds, weaving together historical records, celestial observations, and the divine right of rulers. This was not mere decoration, it was a direct line to the gods and the foundation of royal power. Then came the Spanish conquistadors and missionaries, armed with steel and a fervent belief in their own divine mandate. They saw the Maya codices not as libraries of knowledge but as instruments of the devil. In 1562, in the town of Mani, Bishop Diego de Landa presided over a massive auto da fe, a solemn act of faith. He gathered piles of these sacred books, these repositories of centuries of learning, and set them ablaze. The flames consumed history, astronomy, and ritual, a calculated act of cultural annihilation. As scholar Michael D. Coe has described it, this was a deliberate effort to sever the Maya from their own past, to erase the very memory that gave them identity. The few codices that survived, like the Dresden Codex with its precise Venus tables and almanacs, became isolated relics, their meaning locked away. For generations afterward, the surviving glyphs on stone stelae were dismissed by outsiders as primitive picture writing, their complex grammar and syntax completely misunderstood. The key to this ancient language was only recovered through the brilliant, painstaking work of modern decipherers. The Russian linguist Yuri Norizov, working in the mid-20th century, made a crucial breakthrough. He demonstrated that the glyphs were a true writing system, a mix of phonetic and semantic signs that could be read, not just admired. His work, often met with skepticism, began the long process of giving voice back to a silenced civilization. The fate of the Maya script presents us with a chilling question. In the brutal collision of empires, is the control of writing the ultimate prize? Here, the battlefield was not just land but memory itself. The Spanish understood that to conquer a people, you must first conquer their story. This is the darkest possible path of script evolution, not adaptation or repurposing, but near total erasure. Our next story moves from violent suppression to deliberate creation, where an empire would engineer a new script from scratch to forge a unified national identity. In the royal halls of 15th century Korea, a king confronted a problem of power rooted in the written word. King Sejong the Great looked upon his kingdom and saw a wall built of Chinese characters. These Hanja, complex and numerous, were the exclusive domain of the aristocratic Yongbin class, a tool that kept knowledge and administration locked away from the common people. The Korean language, with its own unique sounds and structure, was forced into the ill-fitting suit of Chinese writing, creating a barrier to literacy and efficient governance. King Sejong's response was not to conquer a foreign script, but to commission an entirely new one from scratch. He assembled a team of scholars in a project of breathtaking linguistic ambition, and the result was Hangul, a featural alphabet designed with scientific precision. The shapes of its consonants were not arbitrary, they mimicked the physical form of the mouth and tongue when making the sounds, a simple line representing the tongue's position, a circle evoking the shape of the throat. This was a script engineered for clarity and ease, a system so logical it could be learned in a matter of days, not the years required for Hanja. In his proclamation, the Hunminjeongeum, King Sejong stated his profound hope that with this new script, even a common farmer could accurately record their thoughts and read the laws of the land. This was a revolutionary act of imperial policy, using script creation not to control but to empower. The king's vision for Hangul was clear: to boost administrative efficiency, foster a distinct Korean cultural identity separate from China's shadow, and ultimately, to unite his kingdom under a shared, accessible written language. Evidence of this success can be seen in documents like the Sangjugwan logs, where the new script began to appear in legal records and royal edicts, making the workings of government suddenly transparent to a much wider audience. Unsurprisingly, the elite Yongbun class recoiled. They derided Hangul as Ianmun, or vernacular script, a vulgar tool unworthy of scholarly pursuit. They understood that their power was built on a monopoly of literacy, and this new alphabet threatened to dismantle that monopoly entirely. Yet the sheer genius of its design ensured its survival through centuries of political pressure. Its ultimate triumph came in the 20th century, when, following Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule, Hangul was embraced as a potent symbol of national sovereignty and pride. Its story forces us to ask a profound question: can a script designed for the people rather than for priests or scribes become the ultimate tool of national unity? The creation of Hangul stands as a unique monument in history, an empire proactively forging its own written voice to serve its entire population. This deliberate act of linguistic engineering shows that a script's greatest power can lie not in its complexity, but in its radical simplicity and accessibility. A revolutionary state understood that to control the future, it must first control the alphabet. Across the sprawling territories of the early Soviet Union, a grand linguistic experiment began. The Latin script, perceived as modern, international, and untainted by the old Tsarist or religious orders, was actively promoted for dozens of non-Russian languages. For a time, it seemed this new, cosmopolitan script would become the unifying typeface of the proletariat, a clean break from the past. Yet this vision was abruptly shattered by the late 1930s. Under Stalin, policy reversed with brutal efficiency. The Latin alphabet was out, and a mass campaign of Cyrillicization was enforced from the center. This was not a suggestion, it was an imperial decree written in a new kind of ink. Languages from Ukrainian and Belarusian in the west to Uzbek and Kazakh in Central Asia were forcibly recoded into the Cyrillic script. The Soviet state created new Cyrillic characters to represent non-Slavic sounds, a technical solution for a deeply political problem. The goal was absolute: to centralize control, forge a common Soviet identity, and tighten Moscow's cultural grip on every republic. As historian Terry Martin identified, this was a form of Russification disguised as modernization, an affirmative action empire in reverse designed to suppress national consciousness. The very meaning of the Cyrillic script was rewritten, transforming it from a marker of Orthodox and pan-Slavic heritage into a stark symbol of Soviet, and specifically Russian, imperial dominance. The script itself became a battlefield. Consider the subtle but powerful distinctions in the Ukrainian version of Cyrillic. It uses a unique character, the G with upturn, a letter absent from the Russian alphabet. This small glyph became a quiet act of linguistic resistance, a way to preserve a separate identity even while using the imposed script. After the Soviet collapse, this battle erupted into the open. Nations like Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, and Moldova immediately initiated processes to switch back to Latin or other scripts as a direct assertion of national sovereignty, a deliberate uncoupling from Moscow's orbit. These transitions were slow, expensive, and politically charged, proving just how deeply the script had been woven into the fabric of the state. The debate continues fiercely today in places like Kazakhstan, where a shift to the Latin alphabet is an ongoing national project. This modern struggle answers a critical question with chilling clarity. The Soviet manipulation of scripts demonstrates that even in the 20th century, writing systems remain potent tools of imperial control. The choice of alphabet is never politically neutral. It is a code that can either bind a nation together or chain it to a foreign power. This modern act of forcing a script onto a culture finds a powerful counterpoint in a story of revival, where a people fought to bring their own ancient writing back from the very brink of extinction. A language sleeps for centuries within the pages of sacred texts, its words reserved for prayer and ancient law. Then, in the late 19th century, a new political vision demanded a voice. Zionism, the movement for a Jewish national home, confronted a profound practical dilemma. How could a people scattered across the globe, speaking Yiddish in Eastern Europe, Ladino in the Balkans, and Arabic in the Middle East, ever hope to build a unified society? The answer was not to choose one existing tongue, but to resurrect another. The revival of Hebrew was an act of deliberate, breathtaking linguistic engineering, and its ancient script was the vessel for this modern miracle. This was not a natural evolution, but a conscious ideological project led by fervent pioneers like Eliezer ben Yehuda. He championed the radical idea that Hebrew must leap from the synagogue and the study hall into the streets, the farms, and the homes of a new nation. The Hebrew alphabet, with its distinctive square Aramaic-derived characters, was suddenly tasked with describing bicycles, newspapers, and modern medicine. To bridge the gap between the ancient language and new learners, the system of vowel points known as Nickwood was incorporated more systematically. These small dots and dashes below the consonants, once primarily for preserving the precise chanting of scripture, now became a crucial learning tool, guiding a generation of immigrants and children toward fluent speech. This was a total transformation of the script's cultural meaning. It was being stripped of its exclusive religious context and reborn as the backbone of a secular, national identity. Newspapers like Ben Yehuda's own Hanzi were published. The first Hebrew dictionary was compiled from countless old and newly minted words, and perhaps most importantly, an entire generation of children, including Ben Yehuda's own son, were raised as the first native Hebrew speakers in nearly 2 millennia. The script became a tangible link to an ancient past, yet it was also a powerful tool for differentiating the new Israeli identity from the Yiddish-speaking diaspora of Europe. This was not just about communication, it was about forging a new cultural consciousness rooted in the land. The ultimate symbol of this success is the Israeli Declaration of Independence, proclaimed in 1948. This foundational document of a modern state was written in revitalized Hebrew, its words formed by the same ancient script that once recorded the books of the prophets. As linguist Jack Fellman notes, this stands as one of the only successful examples of a dead language being revived as a national tongue. What does this extraordinary revival reveal about the power of script? It proves that a writing system can be more than a relic. It can be a living bridge. It can be made to embody both a deep historical legacy and a futuristic political ambition, its meaning radically reinvented to serve the needs of a new era. This conscious reshaping of a script for a modern national project finds its parallel in a new, borderless empire where the code is not written in ink but in ones and zeros. A single digital empire now spans the globe, its territory mapped not by borders but by fiber optic cables and server farms. Its universal script is Unicode, an invisible architecture that assigns a unique number to every character, from the simplest Latin letter to the most intricate Chinese Hanzi. This is the modern equivalent of a universal writing system, a grand technical project to digitally encode every human script, both living and historical. But this process is far from a simple act of preservation. Decisions about which scripts are included, how they are represented, and which historical variants are deemed important enough to save, are made by the Unicode Consortium, a body heavily influenced by the world's largest technology corporations. As historian Thomas S. Mullany has pointed out, digitizing a script is never a neutral act. It is a political process that can subtly privilege certain forms of writing while marginalizing others. Consider the monumental challenge of encoding Chinese Hanzi, a set encompassing tens of thousands of distinct characters. This required immense effort and resources, raising the question of whether a smaller, less economically powerful language community could muster the same influence to have their own complex script fully represented. Controversies have flared, such as the debate over unifying certain characters used in Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, a technical decision that risks blurring important cultural distinctions for the sake of digital efficiency. Even the playful world of emoji reveals this dynamic. What began as a set of quirky images on Japanese mobile phones was formally encoded into the Unicode standard, transforming it into a global visual language. A single emoji, like the folded hands, can mean please or thank you in one culture, while representing a high five or prayer in another. Its meaning is no longer fixed by its creator, but is constantly negotiated by billions of users, a perfect example of a script's meaning changing in the wild, open marketplace of digital communication. So, is Unicode a benevolent library safeguarding our collective written heritage, or is it a new, subtle form of cultural standardization, an empire built on ones and zeros? The very act of converting a fluid, culturally rich script into a standardized data point forces us to ask what is lost in the translation. When a living writing system becomes a numbered entry in a universal digital catalog, has its soul been preserved or simply archived? This invisible reshaping of our written world has a profound parallel in history, a psychological toll extracted from those who were forced to abandon their native scripts for the alphabet of a conqueror. That inner turmoil is the quiet human cost of imperial language policy. An educated scribe in a newly conquered province faces an impossible choice. The script he mastered, the one that holds his people's poetry, laws, and family histories, is suddenly declared obsolete. To survive under the new regime, he must learn to shape his thoughts with alien letters. This is more than a bureaucratic hurdle, it is a psychological upheaval. Literacy is woven into our deepest sense of self, connecting us to memory, tradition, and a shared past. When an empire imposes its script, it demands that its subjects see their own world through a foreign lens, effectively delegitimizing their entire intellectual heritage. This pressure can breed a deep sense of linguistic shame, where people are conditioned to believe their native writing is primitive or backward. Yet, human resilience consistently pushes back against this erasure. Resistance thrives in the shadows, in clandestine schools held in basements where children are taught the forbidden letters of their ancestors. It lives in hidden libraries where precious manuscripts are preserved at great personal risk, and in the stubborn use of an old script for religious rituals or private diaries, creating a parallel cultural universe that exists just beneath the surface of the official state language. The scholar Benedict Anderson powerfully argued that print languages, and the scripts that carry them, are the bedrock of national consciousness. They create a shared, imagined community among people who may never meet. Therefore, the battle over a script is not a minor cultural skirmish. It is a fundamental struggle for the right to narrate one's own history and define one's own identity. This dynamic is captured in several key concepts. Graphization describes the deliberate, often political, selection of a script for a language, a decision that can unite or divide a population. Digraphia occurs when a community uses two scripts for the same language, one for public compliance and another for private identity, a delicate balancing act of survival. We see this in the Irish revival of the Gaelic script as a potent symbol of cultural independence from British rule. A particularly poignant example unfolded in the Soviet Union, where secret header schools operated in defiance of state prohibition. Jewish parents risked severe punishment to have their children taught Hebrew and its ancient script, ensuring that a sacred thread of cultural continuity would not be severed. How does this human need for cultural continuity manifest against such overwhelming pressure? It surfaces in the whispered lessons of a forbidden alphabet, a quiet but defiant act of preservation that proves the true meaning of a script is not held in imperial decrees, but in the hearts and minds of its people. Beyond the powerful forces of identity and resistance, there is another, equally potent driver of script change, one rooted in the universal language of commerce and survival. A caravan of camels moves through a mountain pass, their loads heavy with silk and spices, but their true cargo is far more transformative. Along the ancient Silk Road, merchants from a dozen empires bartered not only in goods but in the very symbols used to record their transactions. In the bustling caravanserais where a dozen languages filled the air, the most successful script was not the one decreed by an emperor, but the one that could quickly and clearly seal a deal. This was a world driven by economic necessity, where the standardization of writing was a pragmatic solution to the chaos of commerce. A shared script became the essential tool for drafting binding contracts, logging complex debts, and communicating across impossible linguistic divides. The script that rose to prominence in these environments was rarely the most sacred or the most complex. It was the one that was most efficient, most portable, and most widely understood by the international merchant class. Consider the incredible journey of the Aramaic script. It became the lingua franca of the entire Near East, not solely through imperial decree, but because Aramean traders carried it along their vast networks, using it as a reliable medium for accounts and correspondence. Its influence stretched so far that it spawned offspring, like the Kharosthi script used along the trade routes of northwestern India and Central Asia. This was a script adapted for local tongues but born from a commercial necessity that transcended borders. The economic imperative for flawless record-keeping was a powerful engine for script standardization, often spreading a writing system far beyond its homeland long before any army arrived to claim formal control. As economic historian Philip D. Curtin notes, these trade diasporas were often the primary vectors for transmitting writing systems across continents. In this context, the very meaning of a script shifts. It is stripped of ideological weight and becomes a utilitarian instrument, a tool for wealth creation and risk management. Its value lies in its sheer functionality and perceived neutrality, allowing it to be adopted by wildly diverse groups without the cultural baggage of a state-imposed system. We see this dynamic etched into metal. Coinage became a brilliant vehicle for disseminating scripts, as the precise lettering on a coin guaranteed its value and carried the written word into the hands of every person in the marketplace. In maritime law, specific scripts were used to draft universally recognized codes governing shipping and insurance, creating a predictable legal framework for international trade. And in countless merchant ledgers, commercial shorthand systems evolved, streamlining the act of writing for speed and clarity over formal beauty. A powerful example of this economic drift unfolds on the Swahili coast of East Africa. For centuries, the Arabic script was used to write the Swahili language, a practice driven entirely by centuries of robust Indian Ocean trade with Arab merchants. This was a cultural fusion born of commerce, long before any European colonial power set foot in the region. So how do the demands of commerce shape script evolution in ways distinct from the demands of empire? Where empire imposes a script from the top down as a tool of control, commerce often cultivates it from the ground up as a tool of cooperation. The economic lens reveals that scripts can flow just as easily along the pathways of profit as they do along the vectors of power. This pragmatic adoption of writing for trade finds a surprising parallel in the work of another group of travelers who carried their own sacred alphabets not for profit but for salvation. A missionary's hand carefully shapes new letters for a language that has never been written. This scene repeated itself from the Amazon to the Pacific Islands, where Christian missionaries became unexpected architects of script. Their driving purpose was not imperial administration but evangelism, a burning need to translate the Bible and catechisms into local tongues to win souls. To achieve this, they performed an act of linguistic creation known as graphization, systematically reducing spoken sounds to written symbols, almost always based on the familiar Latin alphabet. The impact of these missionary scripts was deeply paradoxical. They were, without question, a form of preservation. Languages on the verge of disappearing under colonial pressure were suddenly captured in ink and paper, given a permanence they had never known. For the first time, people could read and write in their own mother tongue, a powerful tool for literacy that could foster a profound sense of local identity and pride. Yet this gift came with a heavy price. The very act of translation forced these languages into a foreign grammatical cage. The Latin alphabet, with its specific assumptions about sounds and sentence structure, often mangled the unique phonetic qualities of the native tongue. Perhaps more divisively, the missionaries had to choose one dialect among many to become the standard written form. This decision could elevate one community's speech to the status of a proper language, while implicitly demoting all others, creating new hierarchies and marginalizing speakers of non-standard dialects. The meaning of these scripts was forever caught between two worlds. As scholar Lamin Sanneh has explored, this vernacularization empowered communities by giving them direct access to scripture in their own words, fostering a deeply personal connection to faith. Yet it also bound them inextricably to a global Christian network, subtly aligning their cultural identity with a new, foreign religious framework. We see this dual legacy in the work of Saint Cyril and Methodius, who in the 9th century created the Glagolitic script for the Slavic peoples to translate liturgical texts, a system that would later evolve into the Cyrillic we know today. Centuries later, Protestant missionaries in Africa developed writing systems for languages like Yu and Nua with similar mixed consequences. A powerful counter-narrative to this missionary-driven change is the Cherokee syllabary. This system was not an adaptation of the Latin alphabet but a unique creation born from the genius of a single man, Sequoyah, who sought to protect his people's sovereignty and culture through the power of writing. His work stands as a defiant example of indigenous script creation, free from missionary influence. So how did the missionary drive for translation differ from the imperial need for administration? The imperial script was a tool of control designed to efficiently govern and extract resources. The missionary script was a tool of conversion designed to transform hearts and minds. One sought to manage a population, the other to save its soul. Both, however, were profound acts of cultural engineering, proving that the introduction of a new script is rarely a simple technical upgrade. It is a spiritual and psychological event that can redefine a people's relationship with their own past and future. This complex legacy of loss and preservation finds a strange echo in a script that was not created, but rediscovered, its original meaning completely lost and then radically reinvented by the world that found it. The ruins of Knossos yielded thousands of fired clay tablets, their surfaces scratched with a script of precise lines and curves. Archaeologist Arthur Evans, who uncovered them, named this writing Linear B, a system of about 90 signs that seemed to record the lost language of the magnificent Minoan civilization. For nearly 50 years, this was the accepted story. The script was a ghost from a non-Greek world, its meaning sealed away by time. Then an amateur linguist, Michael Ventris, cracked the code using methods more common to wartime cryptography. He worked with grids, testing patterns and searching for linguistic roots, treating the ancient tablets like a complex cipher. His monumental discovery shattered the prevailing theory. Linear B was not Minoan at all. It was, in fact, the earliest known form of Greek, used by the Mycenaeans who had taken over the Minoan palaces. This was a revelation that rewrote history, pushing the documented Greek language back by 7 centuries. The script's entire meaning was inverted. It was no longer a mysterious, isolated language, but the administrative voice of the very culture that would inspire the epics of Homer. As his collaborator John Chadwick described, it was like finding a key to a door everyone assumed led to one room, only to discover it opened onto an entirely different, forgotten world. The tablets themselves, once their syllabic nature was understood, revealed a world of meticulous bureaucracy. They were the filing cabinets of a centralized palace economy, listing chariot wheels, quantities of cloth, and rations for bronze smiths. The Pylos tablet Ta 641, for instance, meticulously records the distribution of bronze to various artisans, offering a stark, numerical snapshot of Mycenaean economic organization. The story of Linear B forces us to confront a humbling truth. Our assumptions about a script can be a prison for the past. For half a century, scholars were certain they were listening to a Minoan whisper, when in reality, they were hearing the earliest muffled words of Greek kings. This leaves us with the enduring enigma of its predecessor, Linear A, which remains undeciphered, a silent testament to the Minoans themselves. If the meaning of one script can be so completely transformed by a single decipherment, what other histories are we misreading, simply because we haven't found the right key? This unification of understanding through a single script stands in stark contrast to the story of one that splintered, its letters fragmenting to forge the distinct identities of rival nations. A single character for river once meant the same flowing water from the Yellow River to the Yamato court. This was the unifying power of Hanzi, the script that built East Asia's intellectual world. For over a millennium, Chinese characters were the exclusive medium for law, poetry, and philosophy, creating a shared written civilization across China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. A scholar in Kyoto could read a Confucian classic penned in Beijing, their minds meeting across the silent page despite speaking languages as different as wind and water. This shared script created a vast cultural sphere, a republic of letters bound by brush and ink, yet this very unity contained the seeds of its own fragmentation. As these regions cultivated stronger national identities and their own vibrant vernacular languages, the monolithic script began to splinter along new political fault lines. Japan faced the most complex linguistic challenge. Its native language was structurally alien to Chinese, so a pure logographic system was insufficient. The ingenious solution was the creation of kana, a pair of syllabic scripts. Hiragana, with its soft, flowing characters, was often called women's hand and was used for native Japanese words and grammar. Katakana, more angular, was developed for foreign terms and emphasis. These scripts were woven around the kanji characters, resulting in a unique, hybrid writing system that reflected Japan's dual cultural heritage. A single Japanese sentence could now contain Chinese logograms for root meanings, surrounded by hiragana for grammatical glue, creating a written language that was uniquely and unmistakably Japanese. Korea, as we have seen, took a more revolutionary path with the creation of Hangul, while Vietnam experienced a different kind of shift under French colonial rule. The classical Chu Nom script, a cumbersome system that used modified Chinese characters to write Vietnamese, was replaced by Quoc Ngu, a Latin-based alphabet promoted for its administrative efficiency. This severed Vietnam's direct graphical link to the classical Hanzi sphere, reorienting its written identity toward the West. Then came the most dramatic reform within China itself. In the mid-20th century, the People's Republic of China launched a campaign of character simplification, a massive engineering project aimed squarely at increasing literacy. The goal was to reduce the number of strokes in hundreds of common characters, making them faster to write and easier to memorize. This is where the symbolic weight of a single character becomes intensely clear. Look at the word for love. The traditional form AI is written with the character Chinese letter, which contains the radical for heart at its center. The simplified version, Chinese letter, removes the heart entirely. To critics, this was a deeply symbolic amputation, stripping the emotion of its core. Proponents, however, saw it as a pragmatic removal of unnecessary complexity, a small change that could help millions read and write. This divergence did not happen in isolation. Japan had its own, more modest simplification process after World War II, creating the Shinjitai characters. This means the same character can now exist in three distinct forms: the traditional version used in Taiwan and Hong Kong, the simplified form used in mainland China and Singapore, and the Shinjitai form used in Japan. The character for dragon, for instance, is Chinese letter in traditional Chinese, Chinese letter in simplified Chinese, and Chinese letter in Japanese Shinjitai. They are clearly related, yet distinctly different, a visual representation of cultural and political separation. Linguist William C. Hannes describes this as a kind of character dysfunction, where the very script that once enabled seamless communication now creates new barriers. In the digital realm, this fragmentation poses immense practical challenges. Software and websites must support multiple character encoding systems, and online communication can falter over a misunderstood variant. The ongoing debate between simplified and traditional characters is about more than just strokes on a page. It is a battle over cultural patrimony and modern identity. Is a simplified script a tool of liberation, or does it represent a break with a profound historical legacy? The story of Hanzi reveals that no script, no matter how ancient or deeply rooted, is immune to the forces of political change and national ambition. Its fragments now tell a story not just of a shared past, but of distinct modern destinies. This conscious shaping of writing for imperial identity finds its purest expression in a script engineered from nothing to unite a vast, multi-ethnic empire under a single divine ruler.